Hello everyone, first news update for 7th of April. Now it's 9:30 in the morning Moscow time, and I have prepared quite a number of news on some important developments, and hopefully you will find it informative and interesting. Before I start, let me just remind you that this evening at 6 o'clock Moscow time, I will launch a traditional community chat live stream, and I hope you will find time to join the conversation. Unfortunately, due to some technical issues, I was unable to make live stream last Friday, but today, hopefully, everything will work out good. I will let you know some 10-15 minutes before live stream starts about it. I will post on community page on YouTube and also on my Twitter, X, and Telegram channels. Okay, that's been said. Let's go through some news now. And first of all, of course, I'm going to start with this positive news and the great news, which is that Russian hockey player, a legendary hockey player, Alexander Ovechkin, made the record, beat the record of the Wayne Gretzky, great Canadian hockey player. And yesterday he scored 895th goal, which makes him a top sniper of NHL in history. Great achievement, of course, and in this season there is still 5 games left, if I remember correctly, so therefore probably Ovechkin will score another 2-3 goals, who knows, but of course, great achievement, congrats to Ovechkin, congrats to all the fans of this great game, hockey, and to Ovechkin's team, of course. He plays for Washington Capitals. So big news, by the way, big positive news. But unfortunately, not all news are positive. We are living in quite crazy times, and unfortunately, I have to report about some war and instability on daily basis. For example, RIA Novosti is reporting that Russian air defense systems on duty intercepted 19 Ukrainian drones overnight in the early hours of this morning that were launched by Kyiv regime with assistance of NATO member states to strike deep into Russia. I give you a little more details on that. 13 drones were shot down over the waters of the Azov Sea, 4 drones over the Krasnodar region, and I saw this morning report that railway was damaged in the Krasnodar region as a result of drone attack in a direction. 1 drone were intercepted over the Bryansk region, and also 1 drone over the Crimea. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that Russian Defense Ministry confirmed information about liberation of Basovka settlement in the Sumy region, which is temporarily controlled, region by this Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. Yesterday, I reported about progress of the Russian armed forces in Basovka area, and Defense Ministry later on confirmed this information. This is Basovka, by the way, this prolonged village, and currently Russian forces are in control of several villages in the Sumy region. For example, Veselovka settlement, Zhuravka settlement, Novinka settlement, and now Basovka settlement are liberated. And yesterday in the comment section, I saw a question of one of the members of our community, or maybe not a member of our community, but YouTuber, who was asking how these settlements are liberated when the Sumy region is Ukraine. So, it is a liberation. It is a liberation because Russian troops are liberating people and settlements from Western-backed terrorist regime of Zelensky. As simple as that. As it was a liberation during the Great Patriotic War, when Russian troops entered their, not just liberated Soviet territory, but also entered their territories of Eastern European states and Central European states, and eventually Germany itself. Russian troops were liberating at that point German settlements and German people from a fascist regime that they were under control of. Is that's how it is, right? So yes, Russia is clearly accelerating process of creation of a buffer zone in the Sumy region, and who knows, maybe sometime in the future we will see some sectoral scale offensive operation to liberate Sumy itself. It is a possibility. Also, while map is open, I give you update on the Kursk salient. This is few pockets that are still not being cleared from enemy forces. Latest reports are that Russian troops are finalizing clearing operation in a Gueva settlement. In Oleshnya settlements, battles have begun. And I guess before end of this week, both these settlements will be liberated and surrounding areas. And also, probably before end of this week, Russian troops will reach Garnal settlement also, which is going to be last settlement that Kiev regime forces will withdraw or run away in the Kursk salient area on this borderline strip of the Kursk salient that still is a active, where still active phase of counter-terrorist operation is underway. And also, as you know, Kiev regime's forces were trying to create a foothold in the Belgorod region, right on the border between Belgorod and the Kursk regions of the Russian Federation. And as a result of attacks, Kiev regime's forces, despite their heavy losses, managed to establish control of the Popovka settlement and partial control of the Dmitrovka settlement. And Russian troops currently are focused more on the long-range strikes to neutralize logistical lines of the Kiev regime's forces that are concentrated in this area, and concentration is quite high. Thousands of troops of Kiev regime have been thrown into battle in this direction, and once these communication lines logistical lines are neutralized, I guess Russian troops will conduct a final phase of a counter-terrorist operation, and both these settlements will be liberated. And then Russian troops probably will move forward and start creating a buffer zone along the Belgorod region also. Buffer zone on Kiev-controlled territory for now. And also while map is open, we had reports that Russian armed forces established control over the district of Zapadnaya in Chisov Yar. And even though battle for Chisov Yar lasted for quite a long, I guess we are closing in to a point when entire city is going to be liberated from enemy forces. Who knows, maybe even before end of this week. Now let's go through some other news. And I just spoke about Kursk region, isn't it? And RIA Novosti reported that during the invasion of the Kursk region, Kiev regime's forces lost NATO equipment worth $2.7 billion. I mentioned many times in my reports that a significant number of destroyed military equipment of the Kiev regime was NATO military equipment, including MBT's main battle tanks, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and so on. Right now on your screen you can see Abrams tank, US made M1 A1 Abrams tank that was knocked out in the Kursk salient. Overall, more than 400 tanks were destroyed there, according to Russian Defense Ministry's reports, and thousands and thousands of pieces of other military equipment, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, armored vehicles, and so on, artillery pieces, air defense, radio electronic warfare. It was a total disaster. Basically, entire army group of Kiev regime was decimated in Kursk salient, and that's why many people, I was one of the first who was saying from the beginning that most likely this Kursk salient will play a role of a trap, and Russian troops will use this trap to decimate strategical reserves of the Kiev regime, and that's exactly what happened. And maybe not initially, but nowadays I see almost everybody who is commenting on the issue is acknowledging that yes, Kursk salient did actually become a trap for Kiev regime's forces, and most capable, 15 by the way, 15 most capable brigades of Kiev regime were neutralized in that area. TASS news agency meanwhile is reporting that former Prime Minister of Ukraine, Yulia Tymoshenko, come up with some quite interesting statements. She said that military phase of the confrontation may end before end of this spring, and then total reboot of power in Ukraine will take place. So former Ukrainian Prime Minister and leader of the Batskivshchina party, Yulia Tymoshenko, said that after the end of military operations, their country will undergo complete reboot of power. According to her, there are international plans to end the Ukrainian conflict by the end of spring. She did not provide details of such plans, but specified that this would be followed by total reboot of power, which is quite interesting statement, especially if you take into account that a couple of weeks ago, U.S. representatives or representatives of U.S. president met with a number of political figures in so-called Ukraine, including with Tymoshenko, and straight after that, a number of media outlets start speculating on a possibility that Tymoshenko may actually lead a transitional government. And if that is the case, and if Tymoshenko knows what she is talking about, then it is quite a possibility that in next couple of days we might see coup d'etat in Ukraine, removal of Zelensky from office, after which elections will be appointed. Although before elections will take place, Tymoshenko, this personality, may actually lead a transitional government, or who knows, maybe Zelensky himself will appoint elections. But in next several weeks, some serious changes might happen on Kiev-controlled territory, because after all, without any reasoning, why would Tymoshenko say something like that and jeopardize her own positions? So therefore, some serious changes to be expected in next 3 to 5 weeks, let's say. Also, wow, that's quite interesting. Also, dear friends, very important news about terrorist activity of European states. TASS news agency is reporting that Belarusian border guards and the customs officers arrested a person who was driving a car from Poland to Belarus, with the final destination being Russia. And in that car, there was 580 kilograms of pentaerythritol tetranitrate, some explosive, extremely dangerous, powerful explosive materials. And the driver, during the interrogation, stated that he had no idea about these explosives in a vehicle, and he said that his Estonian mate gave him this contract so that he would drive this car through Poland, Belarus, into Russia to a certain destination. And well, because the car entered Belarus from Poland, one may argue that Estonian and Polish secret services were involved in this terrorist activity. And because it's Estonia and Poland, most likely British secret services were involved also. Most likely. Potentially CIA, but I don't think Trump's administration or whatever forces are behind their administration in US now, I don't think they would like to be involved in this terrorist attack on Russia. But maybe, CIA did still, because of the deep state, right? And deep state clearly allied with the globalists, not with the Trump's administration, isn't it? They tried quite hard to derail Trump's campaign, right? And to put him in jail, for God's sake. So therefore, maybe CIA was involved also, and US deep state. But this is definitely something of concern, because out of desperation, Western so-called elites, Western ruling class, globalists, they are going absolutely insane. And just look at this, what they are doing now. They were sending 580 kilograms of explosives to Russia, and who knows how many lives were saved by Belarusian border guards and the customs officers by detecting these explosives and neutralizing the threat. So well done to our Belarusian brothers. They saved many, many lives, by the way, for sure. But information itself gives you quite a good understanding of with whom we are dealing, right? Because such a operation cannot be done by some random individuals, isn't it? Where are you gonna get 580 kilograms of explosives, by the way? You're not gonna buy it in a coffee shop, right? It's special forces, special services of Estonia, Poland. How Polish border guards or their custom services missed this vehicle? How they did not notice 580 kilograms of explosives? It's not possible, right? Especially if you take in account tensions exactly on the border right now between Belarus and Poland. So most likely Polish customer service officers were told to let this vehicle pass through in hope that Belarusian officers will not notice it, these explosives. But they did. They did a professional job there, right? But information clearly gives you understanding with whom we are dealing. Mass murderers, psychopaths, insane elements, right? That are actively engaged in the terrorism. It is what it is, man. Meanwhile, RT is reporting that today Starmer, Prime Minister of UK, might make an announcement that globalization has ended, which is wow. Starmer, puppet of globalists, to admit that globalization has failed and ended. That's going to be something I will monitor for sure. News from UK. I'm interested what he's gonna say. But according to Times, British Times, a newspaper, Starmer will deliver a speech acknowledging the end of the globalization, end of the era of the globalization. Starmer will make the address in response to US President Donald Trump's imposing sweeping tariffs on the majority of America's trading partners, including UK. Earlier this week, the outlet said that Prime Minister will say that tariffs are wrong, but would also stress that he understands Trump's economic nationalism and wider voters in US, I guess, who believe they have seen no benefits from the free trade and mass immigration supported. So, okay, we will see what Starmer has to say, but acknowledgement from the puppets of the globalists that they are failing is quite a stuff, isn't it? And that will make, by the way, this realization that they are failing and failing big, this will make them even more desperate, right? And even more dangerous. So we should keep that in mind too. Meanwhile, also RT is reporting about insanity in British elites, including military elites, because there are reports from very same times that Royal Navy in UK worried about mighty Russian super yachts. So Royal Navy believes that luxury super yachts owned by the wealthy Russians have been spying on British nuclear submarines. The Sunday Times. This is Sunday Times. This is this other report was from Times, and this is Sunday Times. Sunday Times is a tabloid, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, Sunday Times reported on this matter. The Navy, Royal Navy, had a credible intelligence, yeah, of course, that before Russia's military operation in Ukraine began in 2022, a yacht might have been used to conduct underwater reconnaissance around Britain, the Times claims. The newspaper suggested that some vessels have moon pools that can be secretly used to launch and retrieve deep sea diving equipment. Times quoted an unnamed foreign minister as saying that in 2018, the amphibious assault ship of Royal Navy, HMS Albion, had to leave the port of Limassol in Cyprus yearly after a huge super yacht belonging to an oligarch pulled up alongside it. Okay, man. This is crazy, isn't it? This newspaper is saying that British Royal Navy vessel had to flee because of the appearance of Russian super yacht that belonged to some Russian oligarch. I mean, this is too crazy, man. This is just too crazy. And what about Russian super yachts are spying on British nuclear submarines? They only have 4. So it's not really a big deal to track these 4 nuclear submarines. This is Vanguard class submarines. All 4 of them, by the way, should be retired by now, but their service was prolonged because UK, even though UK is kind of or supposed to build the new ones to replace these old vessels, they did not receive no new vessel for now. So it's only 4 nuclear submarines, right? Usually 2 supposed to be operational and 2 in the docks for repairs and stuff. And I'm not sure that even single British nuclear submarine is operational right now. Really. Maybe, one of them is operational. And come on, man. Russia, we all know that Russia has most capable, submarine fleet in this world, right? Most quiet submarines ever existed are Russian submarines. Latest generations, by the way, right? And even NATO is acknowledging that they call it a black hole, by the way. There is one of the Russian submarines, one type of Russian submarines that is so quiet and so difficult to detect that they call it a black hole, right? And why would Russia use freaking super yachts of the oligarchs when these Russian submarines can do whatever they want, man? They will go in and out of British waters without being detected. They will monitor whatever they want, right? And maybe they are doing this right now as I'm recording this video. So what super yachts? I mean, this is so crazy, isn't it? This is insanity. And yet again, out of desperation, these so-called elites in the West, in this particular case in UK, including military elites and intelligence elites, are going crazy. They really are going crazy. And I don't know, man. British people should be wary, man, because if these kind of people are in decision-making, then well, UK is done, man. Crazies are in charge of country. What you gonna expect? And when it comes to UK, by the way, we have quite a few news about UK this morning. You might not believe, but about 12,000 people in UK have been arrested over social media posts. And this is a country, leadership of which loves to lecture other countries and other people about freedom of speech and their expression. Am I correct? So 12,000 people were arrested annually. So let's go for some details here. Thousands of people in UK have been detained and questioned by police over online posts deemed threatening or offensive, the Times has reported, citing customs data. According to figures published on Friday, officers make around 12,000 arrests annually under their Section 127 of the Communications Act from 2003 and the Section 1 of the Malicious Communication Act from 1988. These laws criminalize causing distress by sending messages that are grossly offensive or by sharing content of an indecent, obscene, or menacing character. via electronic communications network. In 2023 alone, officers from 37 police forces made 12,183 arrests, about 33 per day. The Times noted that this marks 58% increase from 2019 when only 7,734 such arrests were recorded. So this is a big problem in UK for years, by the way. I mean, I did not know that the situation was so bad even in 2019 when over 7,000 people were arrested for some posts on social network. And by the way, we are not talking about posts that are threatening someone. Of course, if there is direct threats, police has to react. No questions about that. This is the case in every country, right? But in the majority of cases, people were calling police on the authors of the post because they find post itself disrespectful, right? And offensive. And usually these posts, in many cases, were either on immigration topic or this DIE or whatever it's called, diversity, blah, 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 that kind of stuff, right? Which is extremely popular in the West at this moment. And many people are losing livelihoods, by the way, for posting something that, man is man, woman is woman. That might be enough in UK for you to lose your job, by the way, because some psycho's gonna call police on you, right? And harass business that you are working in so that they will eventually fire you. So that's what is happening. This some of the posts from these 12,000 people maybe was aggressive and threatening to some people, but majority, I am 100% convinced, by the way, was just opinions about migration and about this woke movement in the West, about this gender fluid nonsense and that kind of stuff, right? LGBTQ, gender fluid nonsense, and the rest of the garbage bomb, right? That's all it is. And thousands of people being arrested for that. And this country, or leadership, let's say, of this country, is there to lecture others about freedom of speech and their expression. I mean, you tell me how crazy is that? And I guess from these 12,000 cases, hundreds of people eventually probably end up in jail. Not all 12,000. Some of them probably were receiving some warnings, or maybe they were paying some fines. But I'm quite sure hundreds of people eventually end up in jail, I guess. Crazy, man. Yet again, I mean, if you're writing some threats to some other person, this is something that police will have to react. Maybe I had received, by the way, hundreds of threats in my journalistic career, right? In Georgia, and also while I'm working on this project, right? But I never had in mind to call police. I mean, really? They are busy, for God's sake. They are doing some serious job. And why should they spend time investigating some freaking post or commentary somewhere? I don't know. But yet again, I mean, some people are just becoming too sensitive about everything, right? And they love to call police on other people, which is crazy, man. Anyway, share your opinion, dear friends. What you think? What is happening nowadays in the UK or in the West? I mean, do you still have a freedom of speech there? Anyways, let's continue. And we have this also quite interesting report that Putin's envoy gives a time frame for a next Russia-US contact. A new round of their contacts with the US can be expected next week. Russian President Vladimir Putin's investment envoy or economical envoy, Kirill Dmitriev, has stated he was in US just a couple of days ago. I reported about it, of course. In an interview with the Russia's Channel 1 on Sunday, this is TV channel, he summarized the results of the recent visit to Washington. Dmitriev characterized current relations as defined by cautious optimism. However, he said that American deep state and several third countries are trying to sabotage the dialogue between Moscow and Washington, which is most likely the case, by the way. For sure the case. I mean, UK, France, other countries that are under strict globalist control clearly are trying to derail relationships in talks between Moscow and Russia, and globalists and their assets in US too. I mean, these so-called liberals or neolibs and their deep state. So I think Dmitriev has a point here, for sure. He also stressed that disinformation dominates in the US regarding the Ukraine conflict. I was surprised that not only American society being led to believe that it is Russia that is violating the ceasefire regarding energy infrastructure, but even several key people in the administration are unaware that it is actually Ukraine that are striking Russian energy infrastructure, Dmitriev said. Which is also interesting nuance that demonstrates a level of how misinformed or ill-informed officials in Western states, in this particular case US, really are, and this is a big deal. I mean, how are you gonna have negotiations with side that is just has no idea what is going on the ground? It's difficult, isn't it? Because if they don't know, they don't know, right? And no matter what you're gonna say, they would not be able to understand you because of their ill knowledge, ill understanding of the situation. That's why I was saying, by the way, that this is just a waste of time, really, all these talks with between Moscow and Washington, because currently I don't see readiness on part of Trump's administration to readiness and also strength on part of Trump's administration to go all the way in this de-escalation. And they need de-escalation, by the way. I believe it is in US's best interest to pull out country from this proxy war against Russia and to focus on some other topics. And it is in best interest of the US if Washington will de-escalate with Russia, will agree on the concessions for all the harm that was done to Russia by US involvement in this proxy war, which will maybe make it easier for US to potentially either avoid a war in the Middle East with Iran, let's say, or to at least make sure that Russia will not use that opening as an opportunity to avenge, right? And so, yes, I mean, US needs. I would not go deep into that topic. It's a huge topic, but one should understand that US did harm Russia big time, right? Thousands of Russian citizens died due to this proxy war that West is waging, and was led and still is led by US, and we cannot forgive that. We just cannot forget or forgive that, and therefore, of course, it is a logical. It would be logical assumption if one will think that Russia will use any opportunity to harm US to avenge the blood of fallen Russian heroes, right? And the only way to avoid this, as I already said, only way to avoid this on part of US is to basically pull out US from this proxy war straight away. That's what Washington has to do. They have to stop deliveries of weapons and munition and sharing of intelligence. That has to stop. Washington also has to use its leverage over the whatever countries they have a leverage in Europe, so that they will do the same, right? Washington has to agree on the concessions in Russian favor, big concessions, by the way. I would not go into details, but I think even the Russian government does what it can to support families of their fallen Russian heroes and families of the Russian fighters that were wounded in this conflict, and those soldiers too. I think much more can be done, and the U.S. can finance that. U.S. can actually finance that as a concession. During the negotiations, if I was engaged in that, of course, I will, highlight this topic because it has to be done in order for us to not seek revenge. Otherwise, any opportunity comes along, we might use. So to really de-escalate, U.S. leadership has to agree on the concessions, and it's not just concessions for harm that was done to Russia as a result of this proxy war, but also harm that was done to Russia by U.S. in other areas, for example, destruction of Nord Stream pipelines. Someone has to pay for that, right? And this someone is U.S. Biden's administration was not acting alone. Biden's administration was acting on the name of U.S., right? So it is U.S. that now has to pay back, right? And there are many other topics, by the way, that needs to be discussed and most likely will be discussed. And who knows, maybe that's why Russia is sending, maybe that's why on leading figure nowadays from Russian side in terms of negotiations is Vladimir Dmitriev, who is, business, all about business, right? And finances. And he himself is saying that openly, right? He is not about some political, geopolitical, some stuff. He's more about business, right? And who knows, maybe already discussions are underway about concessions that U.S. has to agree in order to really de-escalate relationships with Russia. I don't know. But one should keep in mind, by the way, that if U.S. leadership will disagree on Russian terms, then, we will do what we have to do. And any opportunity comes along, I'm quite sure we will do what is necessary. Anywhere in this world, by the way, in the Middle East, in the global South, in Africa, everywhere. Right? And I don't think people will struggle to understand why is that. Yet again, U.S. for no reason, harmed Russia big time, and this cannot be forgiven or forgotten. It is what it is, man. Vzгляд newspaper. We might avoid escalation if U.S. will agree on concessions. That might help Russia to retaliate, but retaliate with restraint. Russia will still retaliate, by the way, no questions about that. But there is retaliation and retaliation, right? Scale might be very different. Anyways, let's continue. Yes, and he said, by the way, that next week, Dmitriev characterized current relations, I already said that, as defined by cautious optimism, and he said that next round of negotiations might take place even this week. So we will see. Maybe this time U.S. envoy will came to Russia, or maybe some Russia-U.S. delegations will meet in I don't know, Saudi Arabia again. Possible. So Vzгляд newspaper, meanwhile, is reporting that ground operations against Ansar Allah movement or Houthi rebels in Yemen is underway. So a ground operation against the Houthis is being prepared in Yemen, which could receive support from United States and Saudi Arabia, CNN reported, citing diplomatic sources. And probably U.S. I don't know, man. This is bad idea in so many levels, isn't it? This is a bad idea. But, if decision makers in Washington are extremely badly informed and ignorant, then they will probably go ahead with ground operation. They might send some special forces. I don't think US will deploy huge number of their troops. Most likely they will send some special forces, maybe Blitz too. And Saudi Arabia might get involved on the ground big time with its military. United Arab Emirates might send its troops, also private military companies, and Yemeni. There is terrorist groups in Yemen, in the northern parts of Yemen, right? Let's go there. So, and that's the Yemen, by the way, and Houthis are basically in charge of capital Sana'a and this southern western part, right? Rest of the territory is controlled by Saudi proxies, basically. There are some terrorist groups, terrorist organizations, and local militias of different type, and probably they will be used as a main force to attack Houthis. They might receive some additional weapons from Saudi Arabia, US, UAE, and they may try once again, basically, to defeat Houthis, but they failed. I mean, every time they try, they fail. So why should Riyadh think that this time will be any different? I don't know. And they are risking big times, because Houthis will, now there is a peace agreement between Houthis and Saudi Arabia, right? And Houthis are not striking oil fields of Saudi Arabia or infrastructure. But very day Saudi Arabia will get engaged in military activities against Houthis, all bets are off, and Houthis will begin, maybe even invade Saudi Arabia. They can invade Saudi Arabia, by the way. They know how to operate in this area. It's their territory and their terms, right? So I don't know. It's going to be a big mistake on part of US if they will go ahead with their invasion. It's going to be big mistake on part of Saudi Arabia, UAE, or whomever will participate. But we will see. Meanwhile, of course, it is highly likely, unfortunately, now that our main theater of operations in the Middle East may become Iran, because of the constant threats that US leadership is issuing towards Iran. And we have this report that Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, has put their country's armed forces on high alert. This was reported by Reuters, citing sources. And also, Iran's officials are declaring that they are ready for war, for any type of war. So Iran will not bow to their pressure of foreign nations and is ready to respond to any kind of aggression. Major General Hussein Salami, chief commander of their elite Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, has stated, speaking during the meeting with the senior IRGC commanders on Sunday. Salami said that Iran is absolutely not concerned about a war. We will not initiate a war, but are ready for any war. He added that Iran has developed strategies to overcome any adversary and to repel psychological operations and direct military attacks alike. However, we will not take a single step back in the face of their enemy, he stressed. So they are ready. They were preparing for a war, by the way, with US for decades, right? Iran was preparing for war with US for decades. And I guess they are ready, by the way. I guess they are ready, and it will be unbelievable mistake on part of US if they will attack Iran. This war, very same day they will attack Iran, this war will move to US territory. Make no mistake about that. Iran will attack US assets, not just in the Middle East, but on US soil too. And they will have every right to do so. It's a war, right? And I don't think US is ready for what will come in case of war with Iran, by the way. And I'm not sure US militaries are even capable of defeating Iran. They are just not capable of that. You know, one should keep in mind that Iran is several times bigger than Iraq, right? It's a huge country, by the way. And people in Iran, they know who their enemy is, right? They remember perfectly well during Iraq-Iran war. Iraq was supported by the West, right? By the US, and all the chemical weapons that Iraq was deploying was originated from the West. And there are some people in Iran may not be that happy with their current government or the system, but if country is under attack, I mean, people will get united and they will fight back and fight back hard. I have no doubts about that. Nothing to be said about impact that war between Iran and the US and US allies will have on the rest of the world and the economy of the rest of the world. So, I mean, let's hope tensions will die down and Washington will, reconsider its stance in regards to Iran, and otherwise some very terrible things might happen. And currently Netanyahu is in Washington, isn't it? I believe Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu is in Washington, and he will probably try to persuade US leadership and forces that are behind Trump's administration to go ahead with this war against Iran, with the strikes. And yet again, that's going to be grave mistake on part of US if they will do that. Let's hope they don't, but things might escalate big time, very fast. Kommersant, meanwhile, is reporting, and I will end this update on this news, that Asian stock markets open low after Trump's tariffs. So Asian markets, by the way, are losing big this morning, and almost all of them. Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, Korea, all markets, by the way, China, all stock markets are failing big time. And when now it's 18 past 10, it's 3-hour difference, isn't it, between Moscow time and their time in Berlin, let's say. When European markets will open in Germany, France, then in UK, I guess they will continue this trend and they will fail also big time. So, well, what a decision on the part of Trump, isn't it? Trillions and trillions and trillions of assets, dollars were wiped out from these stock markets. And you know what? I mean, these markets were inflated anyways, I believe, due to this constant printing of the dollar. And therefore, I think this is a big correction that maybe was needed. And I think this is not even enough. After the situation will stabilize, markets will still be inflated, in my personal opinion, because yet again, I don't believe that companies like Nvidia or Apple or Google should work for trillions of dollars. It just makes no sense, right? So these companies and markets in general are inflated. And why is that? Because no matter how many trillions gonna be printed by Treasury in US, eventually, after some chain, this money will still be accumulated in the hands of this 1%, right? Richest. And what they're gonna do, they're not gonna sit on this money, right? They're gonna invest it somewhere. And one of the ways they're gonna invest is stocks. And they are inflating. This constant printing of their dollars are bringing down real value of the dollar, and they're also inflating the value of these companies. And that's why they are losing this easy, by the way. That's why they are losing hundreds of billions in their pricing this easy like that, because they never worth that money in the first place. Anyways, we should expect some big downfalls on stock markets today. Now European market is going to open in about hours time, and then US markets. So we will see what will happen. Oil prices are also down, by the way, because there is a fears of global recession now. So, this is it for now. Means still, oh, what the hell, man? I was hoping that this update is gonna be some 30 minutes. It's 51 minutes already. I have to, station some clock right there, so that I will constantly monitor length of their program, because ideally this program should be like 25-35 minutes, around that, because it's not too long, not too short. 50 minutes, that's quite long, and not many members of our community have enough time to spend it on news update. But after all, you can pause it, isn't it? You can just pause and then continue to watch later on. Anyways, dear friends, hopefully you will find this episode informative and interesting. And if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. This is the only way we can try at least to influence algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work, if you like my channels, and if you want to support or can afford to support, you can do it through several means, with donation through PayPal platform or Boosty platform, or by subscribing to my page on Patreon and Boosty. Patreon or Boosty, by the way. You can subscribe on both if you want to, but it's the same content on both pages. Links are under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. And yes, this is it. This is it for now. 6 o'clock this evening, dear friends, if no technical issues or anything like that, I will have a traditional community chat live stream, and I hope you will manage to join the conversation. We can talk about literally any topic, by the way. It's a community chat. It's first of all for us to exchange opinion in real time. So this is it for now. Have a wonderful day, and take care.